everyone. I want to talk about 35mm point and shoots. Mostly because I just got one, but I want to talk about why that doesn't really matter. I think gear collecting is kind of an epidemic. It's super prevalent in the world of technology, but also super common in the world of cameras and photography. Articles about best point and shoot camera, top 5 point and shoots, best 35mm point and shoot. And in my honest opinion, the best 35mm point and shoot is the one you have like right now, or the one you can get right now. And that's coming from someone who has many and has gone through many throughout my photography journey of the past few years, and someone who has seeked that advice. And so I kind of want to offer at least my insight as a person who shoots film photography. So my first 35mm point and shoot was the Canon SureShot Max Date. This one right here, actually. Still have it. It unfortunately broke on me, so that's why I don't use it anymore. But since then, I've gone through a few point and shoots from brands like Olympus, Polaroid, Ricoh. Right now I'm on Nikon. And they all have their own specific cool qualities. They got the zoom lenses, they got different focal lengths. Some of them have date backs where the date is printed on the back. Basically, they all have different qualities, and so there are reasons to get each and every one of them. In this video, I kind of want to break down the qualities that you should probably look at and some qualities that are often looked at but aren't as important as you think they are. Let's start with the lens. The lens is probably the most important part of the camera besides the film stock that you use, because it is probably the only other thing that will truly affect the way your image looks. The lens can be broken down into a few pieces, and so let's start with the focal length. Focal length being how zoomed in it is. It's measured in millimeters. The higher the millimeter, the longer the lens is. The lower it is, the wider it is. And so something like a 23mm lens is going to be fairly wide. I think the iPhone is equivalent to like a 28mm. Inversely, something like a 100mm, which you don't often find on point and shoots unless it's a zoom lens. 100mm is more of like a telephoto, and that is something that is super zoomed in. So if you're taking a photo of something like across the street, you can see more of that because the angle is not going to be as wide. The first camera I got right here, I mentioned SureShot Max, is a 38mm lens. Wide lenses are often used for landscapes because you can just see more in the frame, whereas if you take a landscape with a longer lens, it might feel claustrophobic. But also, every decision that you make and every lens that you choose, it's not something that is made to trap you, and it's not something that is made to restrict you. My newest camera that I got, the Nikon AF600, I bought purposely because it is a wide lens. So this is a 28mm lens on the Nikon AF600. It's the widest lens that I've used on a point and shoot so far, and honestly I love it because I am able to do those things like wide landscapes, but also get those group photos and not feel like I'm constrained, and I can still take good portraits with it. The second part of the lens that I want to address is sharpness. It's not something that the ordinary person would probably see. The biggest way you can tell between the sharpness of a lens is if you compare something like an actual point and shoot and compare that with something like a disposable camera. And that's because disposable cameras use plastic lenses. It is something that kind of comes up on those top 5 lists on camera comparison sites. Honestly, sharpness isn't something that would affect you, and I don't think it should be something that totally changes your decision unless obviously you're doing something for editorial, you're getting paid for your sharpness, or if you're thinking of something between a disposable and something that's not a disposable camera. Most cheaper point and shoots will have glass that is inferior to a point and shoot that is like $500. The glass obviously is going to be better on something that's more expensive, but that is not to say that something that is budget friendly will have bad glass or will take bad photos. I want to offer an opinion that kind of goes against a common thing that you see on the photography community. The aperture of your lens really does not matter, the maximum aperture. So just to break it down, aperture is kind of, think of it like your iris in your eye. It's just how wide the lens can physically open up to let in light. The wider it is, the more light that can enter it. And so when you're looking at a camera, it's the number that's associated with the F. So it's like f2.8, f3.5, f4. The higher the number, the less light you're bringing in. The lower the number, the more light you're bringing in. And those are measured in stops. This is a lot to take in at one point. Basically what I'm saying is that a lot of these lists and a lot of people online will say, you need a camera that can hit f2.8. You got to get a camera that can hit f2, f1.8. I feel like the most common pursuit of low aperture is because of its bokeh. Bokeh is the kind of aspect of the out of focus area. One of the things that changes when you shoot at such a low aperture like 2.8 and there's like great background separation is, I mean, you can see it right here, the background gets blurry. And so when you shoot at a higher aperture like f16, the background becomes less blurry and it becomes, more in focus. It's something that people kind of associate with things that look good and like, yes, it looks good. Yes, that silky bokeh is nice. However, there comes to a point when it feels excessive, when it feels like, your subject is in this like crazy void. There's nothing behind them. They're kind of in this chamber. You're like, what am I looking at? I live in New York City. I take a lot of photos and there's so much going on in the background, so much that I want to be included in the photo because it is important and because that helps to tell the story of the photo that I'm taking and the person in the photo. And if I can't see the background, then I lose some of that story and you lose some of that kind of awareness of the environment. And bringing that back to the main point of this video is when you're looking at a point and shoot, you need to think about what you can be doing with this point and shoot. As the name implies, it is a camera that is made to whip out super fast, snap a photo, be done with it. It is made to get those memories, to get those moments. There are aspects that are more important than aperture. But at the end of the day, your control over light, your control over focal length, your control over depth of field are all things that contribute to how the audience and how your viewers will view your photos, how they'll interpret your photos and interpret the way that you want to explain it. I think the most important thing to look at with point and shoots is the size of it. If something is giant, if something is bulky, then it's like, why not just get a rangefinder? Why not just get a actual SLR if you're gonna be carrying around something that's like the size of a brick anyways? I thought it would be cool to bring on a photographer friend of mine, Jozef, to talk a little about the point and shoots that he's gone through over the years and to kind of tell his story about why he chose those specific cameras and his opinions on the things that I've brought up today.
My name is Jozef Zekanowski. I'm a friend of Robert's. I'm a longtime photographer, and I've worked with Robert on a lot of cool projects. So I wanted to kind of bring my experience to the table when it comes to point and shoots, because point and shoots are something that I've always had in my pocket and love to use, and honestly are one of my primary ways of making photos. I don't really plan shoots or have studio sessions, but I'm more so just trying to put myself in situations that make for a good photo, whether that's out with friends trying to just capture just a good moment. If I'm out in public and I see something that catches my eye that I find interesting, I will kick myself if I don't have a camera in my pocket. The first point and shoot I ever had was this Ricoh R1, one of my favorite cameras of all time. This thing is incredible, besides the fact that it's extremely unreliable. As you can see, I've really done a number on it. I've dropped this thing 100 times, and the LCD on these things is just infamous for breaking. This has a very wide lens, and I really like that with a point and shoot because it lets you get in really close to subjects. I really like to be able to take cool portraits and get right up in people's faces, basically. Another very important part of the equation is where you get your scans done. I found that places that do really high quality scans I can get a lot of detail even in a less quality point and shoot. So to Robert's point, you can shoot with anything. It's just like lighting, how quality your scans are, some of your post work that really can make or break a photo. Against Robert's point, I've gone through a lot of like thrift store point and shoots that just will break on you. So you do have to be a bit careful. For example, I found this cool waterproof action shot camera that unfortunately just does not work. For me, I mean, if you're taking care of your stuff, you can really make stuff last. So this kind of is an argument in both directions, because it's an argument to not spend too much money, because the odds that your point and shoot breaks are pretty high and you can't really get them repaired. But also, don't be afraid to go on eBay and get something that is like kind of certified, because if you're spending $50 every time and you're getting something that's just gonna break on you. My go-to camera is, you know, kind of guilty about it, feel a little guilty about it, but I have a Yashica T4, kind of one of those hyped up cameras that you'll see in those lists. It's not something you need to spend money towards. You don't need to get something like a T4 or a Contax T2, but I do have a lot of love for this camera just because it does all the things I need in a point and shoot, which is turn on with just one little flick of my finger and then take a picture with one press of this button, and it just works. There's a couple settings in the top, but I rarely touch them. It tells me how many photos I have left. The thing just works, and that's really what you want in a point and shoot. I don't really care about the aperture. You know, as a point and shoot user, I'm just on auto, and I'm trusting my gear. I'm trusting the camera to do what I need it to do.
All in all, I'm not here to tell you how to buy your stuff. I just want to make sure that everyone knows what they're thinking about and what is the psychology of point and shoots. And I hope that you take that into account when you're buying these things, because honestly, point and shoots can get really expensive. All the ones that are on the best point and shoot list, yes, they are amazing. Yes, they have amazing glass, super wide apertures, they have very tiny builds, but they're also super expensive. And I don't want people to think that if they're buying something cheap, then their photos won't be good, because I don't think that's true. You can let something slide. You can let sharpness slide. Personally, love to embrace film grain, out of focus moments and imperfections, because I feel like a lot of that just captures how I was feeling in the moment. It's also a reality that point and shoots, 35mm point and shoots, not a lot of them are made today. The ones that are made today are really cool, but they're also pretty cheap. And so that mentality kind of should carry over when you're buying used antique point and shoots. A lot of these were made in like the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. Technology wasn't kind of made to last, and things will break. I've had cameras break naturally on their own. I've dropped cameras because that's how I roll. I hope I've offered at least some insight and guidance. If you oppose me, if you want to challenge me in the comments, if you want to agree, anything, let me know what you guys think about how you've bought point and shoots. Let me know what you've bought, what you use, what your favorite point and shoot is. Currently, as I said, mine is the Nikon AF600. Until next time, I'll see you around.